It must just be that I know when I'm about to film, I get too excited doing my eyebrows and they get a little outside of the lines, but that's what we have bangs for. Also, I had a neon eye look on earlier, so if my eyes are pinkish, that is the reasonable explanation for that. Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm in a different spot right now, but that's because it's the middle of the night and I just wanted to chat and do makeup. Myself, along with everyone else, watched the Framing Britney Spears documentary, so I've had some thoughts stewing about that for like a week. And then also, I'm a big fan of Married at First Sight, so I plan to also talk a little bit about that later on. But while I do that, I have an eye look in mind that I wanted to do. It's nothing really too complicated. I had done it a couple years ago and I loved the look, so I figured I wanted to recreate that now. I'm also kind of leaning into the camera right now, so hopefully that doesn't look too weird. I'm not going to use a primer because I'm going to use an eyeliner as most of my base, but I did just want to take a little bit of concealer to fill in my brow bone. And I actually don't have my favorite brush for this with me, so hopefully I don't totally mess it up. But I want to use Boots from ColourPop on a flat brush and just fill in a big winged eyeshadow moment. So I watched Framing Britney Spears maybe like a week ago. I hadn't heard about it before I watched it, so I think I did watch it pretty early on. But I saw it pop up as recommended. It was only like an hour and 15 minutes, I think. And I'll say first, I thought it was very entertaining. I thought the beginning of it was very nostalgic. I was a big Britney fan when I was a little kid. And then I think it dove into two main points. Yeah, this brush is gonna suck for this. You know, first it really addressed the media portrayal and treatment of Britney, and then it went into all the conservatorship business. And I think that the media portrayal was the stronger takeaway from it. I meant to make some kind of notes to like organize my thoughts about this better, but I didn't, so I'm just gonna be talking out of my ass. And then I'm screwing myself over by doing my makeup during it because I can't just edit my thoughts into the correct order afterwards, because you'll see that my makeup won't be done in the right order then. My cat just insisted on being fed, so I'm not sure where I was. She was like, I'm going to stand here and meow nonstop until you give me my food and put me to bed. So I did, and now I don't know where I was. But I bet I was gonna start talking about the media and the rise of pop stardom coupled with the start of the internet after what I believe was an era of very, very male-dominated music. All of a sudden we have all these pretty young faces coming out, and we have drama and feuds and relationships and virgins and sex. And I mean, it showed. I don't want to recap, but you know, everyone ate that shit up. Oh, this is a nightmare. This brush is so dry now. It was definitely sad to like see and relive how women, especially young women, are often treated by the media, and all this conversation around, you know, boyfriends and her boobs and her virginity. You know, it felt like she was made out to be so many things at once. You know, her music was very sexually charged, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it was always in a very empowering way. But then some people looked on her as a bad influence. And then you also had her speaking about waiting until marriage, which I haven't looked into more, but I'm curious if that's something from her roots or if that's something that was more of like a PR thing, that she's like, you know, untouchable. I'm happy that we live in a time now where I feel like it's being acknowledged how inappropriate it is to talk to a woman or a girl in such a way. I don't know if it's because I'm taking so long or what, but this looks so gross, I'm sorry. I think it was very effective at painting a very clear picture of how this rise in paparazzi was always immaculately inappropriate. You know, I love that clip of Michael Moore saying, like, why don't we just leave her alone? And I think that's, you know, a whole thing that, like, none of this was ever our business. It was never our place to see her doing meaningless tasks or having public meltdowns. You know, and I think that was the point you were supposed to get out of it. And I think that's the point that everyone got out of it. But then when it came to the conservatorship issue, they provided us, an audience with probably largely zero knowledge of conservatorships, enough knowledge to ask a couple questions. Now we're asking, is this appropriate? Does she need this? Does she still need this? How does she get out of it? How is this whole system working against her? And the more I thought about it and spoke with a couple people that also watched it, it kind of helped me realize that it's a conspiracy theory. I'm not here to say that it's definitely false, but the thing is, we don't know, and it's none of our business. I did some Google searches about why someone in a conservatorship wouldn't be able to speak out, and I couldn't find any evidence that showed that she's unable to speak out against it. And I feel like there were some parallels drawn that really weren't parallels. Like, I felt like they were trying to illustrate that her being so in charge of her shit when she was, you know, a young performer, and her doing these sold out shows in Vegas and everything were examples of her being high functioning enough to not have to be in a conservatorship. And like, you know, we know this, but I'll remind you that there's mental illness everywhere. You know, your doctor could be bipolar, your accountant could be suffering from postpartum depression, your professor could be schizophrenic. And everything with Britney Spears is so amplified because she is so fucking rich, and that does make her much more of a target than it would for, you know, one of us common folk living with a mental illness. And for all we know, she is at risk of being taken advantage of and losing millions of dollars. It seems like it happened before with that Sam guy. I'm not here acting like I know either. I don't. But what I do know is that her mental diagnoses are none of our business. And we're able to look at that first part and say, wow, that was inappropriate for us to buy into the media and feel entitled to all this information about her. But we're not then seeing to what we're doing now, which is still expecting to know things about her that are not our business. I'm all for using your voice, using whatever platform you have, even if it's just, you know, interpersonal to a couple people that you speak to spread a good message. You know, I will never discount the power of spreading a Black Lives Matter post on your Instagram or correcting a sexist family member, because I think that's how you get change going. But when it comes to this Free Britney, what change is happening from it? Isn't it just us spreading more speculation and bringing more eyes onto her? You know, you have to realize, like, in this situation, for what they're insinuating to be true, it means that everyone's working against you and keeping a secret. And then we have these little tiny clues that we're putting together that seem a little fishy, and then we're coming out of it with this message that there's really no evidence of. If you're watching this and you have found some good solid evidence, I would love to hear it. If you're an expert on conservatorships, I'd love to hear it. But I think at this point I'm of the belief that we don't have the right to know what's going on. And I would hope I can have enough trust in our legal proceedings that it's not just all these judges and lawyers and her family and all these people working against her. But either way, they shouldn't have to prove it to me, because Britney is none of my business. Hopefully I said what I want to say there. I'm a little discouraged by this makeup because it looks like shit, but we're just gonna keep pushing on and see what happens. I'm gonna take some of my Too Faced glitter glue. I have this Glitter Injections glitter in Barbie. I've had it for years. I don't even know if they make it in like the syringe packaging anymore. It looks cool, but it's super annoying. Alright, that looks nice. The glitter is finer than I remember. So I wouldn't call myself like the biggest reality TV person, but I've been a fan of Married at First Sight since like the first season. I remember watching the ads before it even came out and I thought it was so cool. And I've watched almost all of the seasons. If you've never heard of it, it's a show where, you know, these experts match up people out of all their applicants to get married. In the beginning, they think they were doing 3 couples per season, and now they're doing 5. And the thing that I like about it is it feels so much more real than other reality shows. You know, of course, everything is edited, but I always like that it's like normal people. You know how like The Bachelor, you know they're just like plucking like the one prettiest girl out of her small town in Louisiana, and then the one prettiest girl out of her small town in Alabama, and they're both pageant queens and they know each other, and then also the one prettiest girl from her small town in West Virginia. You know, like this show's not like that. This show is like normal people with normal lives, and they talk about real issues, and they talk about money even. And I've always found it interesting because I find it so much more authentic. You know, and sometimes people in the show have visions for what they want in a partner that are very different from mine, and I find that interesting also because I can't imagine, you know, wanting some of these things that these people want, but that's part of the interest of it. And this season they are in Atlanta. And if you've watched any bit of it, you know that Paige and Chris are a lot to unpack. You know, and Paige is one that before she met Chris, well, first of all, they introduced Chris, and Chris seemed like a douchebag from the start. You know, the show does have a tendency to replay the same clips, but they had these clips of him talking about coming up from nothing and being super successful now, and he was homeless, he slept in his car, and then he did this, and then he got a $12,000 check. And I'm always very skeptical and kind of turned off by those stories because I often feel that people that have this big glow-up story feel like they already put in their work and then they kind of act more entitled. I don't know how to express that without sounding like I'm shitting on people that had hardships. That's not what I'm doing. But I guess it's people that are so excited to constantly talk about this success story that it seems like in their mind they made it and they're done. And he was very adamant on wanting a kind of subservient wife, but like a freak in the bed. And I think myself and anyone else watching is like rolling their eyes, like, you know, like you want like the perfect woman who's like there to look pretty and shut up but then like please you at night. But then Paige comes around and she's describing what she wants in a man and like what she wants to be for her husband, and it sounds like that. And I'm like, all right, like maybe they'll be good together after all. Like I don't get it, but it seems like that's what she wants. But man, this guy has like no filter, but I think that has a bad connotation. But he truly just says what he's thinking, and it's rude and it's disrespectful. They're at their wedding having just met, and he's asking her about birth control and about her sex drive, and he's saying how he hasn't pleasured himself in a couple days to save himself for her. And then she talks to his father, who's now her father-in-law, and he's also a pastor, and what he has to say to her is that, you know, when he gets home after a hard day, she should be there to give him the touch of a woman. And the thing about this that really just feels backwards to me is she also works. She's an accountant, she's in real estate, but I feel like that's like brushed under the rug. Like that's like what I don't get about this like traditional values, but then we've added on women working. And I feel like that completely takes away from the fact that a lot of jobs that are typically reserved for like a woman's work are not considered work, you know? So it's like Paige has to go to work and have probably an equally stressful day as he does, but then she's expected to be waiting on him in many ways to make sure he's relaxed. There should definitely be give and take in a relationship, but I think any relationship that starts on day one with the expectation of her providing him with pleasure, regardless of whether or not she wants it, is just so backwards to me. Be like one thing if he's like telling her like, you know, you're married, make sure that you're looking out for him and not just thinking of yourself. Like, of course, like, don't be selfish. And it would be nice if then he's telling him that also. But it just felt so backwards that he's meeting this woman for the very first time, and what he has to say to her is, make sure you please my son after he gets home from work. I think what also, like, particularly irks me about that is just the making sex into a duty instead of being something that two lovers might do as an expression of their feelings, as a way to explore intimacy and express their passion. And it makes me feel so sorry for Paige and anyone in her shoes that's coming into these very, traditional ideas. The fact that this man is a pastor, and you would think that his priority would be to have some kind of like moral conscience, and yet he's on national television telling her this. It blows my mind. I have to move on. So then they're intimate that evening and the next morning, and then he's crying. He ends up telling her that he's crying because he's so upset because he's not attracted to her. He tells her this right before she's going to meet with her in-laws to have breakfast. So she ends up talking to them about that, which I thought looked nice. I thought it seemed like, I couldn't imagine myself doing that, but I liked that she did it, because why not seek wisdom from, your elders, especially when these people know your partner so much better than you do. But then, afterwards, he's all upset that she spoke to people about it. And I thought that was so, like, him deflecting. It's like, you tell her something that, like, under the guise of it being honest. And there's some things that, like, don't be honest about them when there's nothing productive to come of it. You tell her that you're not attracted to her. That's not something that she can just change. She can't be like, oh, you're not attracted to me, let me, flip a switch and look different then. That's a him problem. And if he's going to stay and stick it out and try to work on the relationship, he should keep that to himself. Like, this has come up before with Zach and Mindy. Zach told her early on that he wasn't attracted to her, and there was no point in that. It's just insulting. Being truthful, being honest doesn't mean saying whatever you want, because you're an asshole if you tell someone something like that. And then right before they're meeting with your parents, and then you're mad at them for telling your parents. Clearly the whole thing was just immature. It's like he wanted her to be his wife in the way that they keep secrets, and, what goes to her stays with her, and they'll sleep together, but then he wants to, like, disrespect her. So then a couple days later, while they're on their honeymoon, he finds out that his ex-fiance that he got out of a relationship with just a couple months before agreeing to get married is pregnant with his child, because according to him, they slept together once when she was grieving the loss of her father. And I thought that whole thing was very fishy. Like, maybe that's true, but it just reminds me of, like, being young and getting caught shoplifting and being like,
this is the only time I ever stole.
Upon hearing that, I'd be very surprised if he wasn't sleeping with this person regularly leading up to him getting married. I'm surprised that, like, the experts even, like, picked him for the show, because it seemed like so unbelievably obvious that he was not ready for such a thing. And then after she finds out, and she is obviously very upset about the news, he was being so sweet to her. And I think that kindness was very manipulative. And also there's something I wanted to touch on that they said in that conversation, where he was saying to her that her Paige, that's his wife, and as his wife, she comes before everyone, including his child. And then Paige is like, wow, that means so much to hear you say, because, your wife should come before everyone, including your child. And I don't agree with that. I feel like that sounds like the sick shit that, like, makes kids grow up feeling unloved, and then they, like, project their hurt onto others the rest of their life. I remember talking to my mom once when I was young, and I was probably just asking questions because I was being annoying. But I remember her saying that she would take a bullet for me or my brother, but not for my dad. And no shade to him, they've been happily married for 30-something years, but that's just not how it works. It's like, he's a grown adult that can take care of himself. Your child Your children are your flesh and blood. They're innocent. They're always the priority. And that's how I was raised, that no matter what, children are number one, and you never know what love truly is until you have a child. So hearing them have this conversation as if it's like a normal thing to say that your wife comes before your children, I was kind of like, is that what people think? But yeah, that's a super tough call. I mean, I think he's given Paige enough reasons to be very doubtful about this relationship before he found out he was gonna have a child. You know, and the fact that it's like a TV show, it's like, do you stick it out just for the process or do you leave for like your own sanity? But I just feel like in any situation, if you start a new relationship with someone and they find out they have a child on the way, I just feel like that's not the time to start a relationship. Having a relationship with someone that already has a child, that like, you know, the terms, the feelings have been like established is one thing, but it's like I would be nervous that I would feel second to the mother, third to the child, but that's okay. You know what that reminds me of? I watched the third 50 Shades of Grey years ago. Me and my friend wanted to go to the movies and that was playing and we're like, all right, let's go see it. And I think the whole plot point of that was her name Anna? She was pregnant and Christian Grey was like being a brat the whole time because he felt like she was gonna love the baby more than him. And it was awful, and maybe that's why it was so ineffective on me, but it made millions of dollars and it was produced into a whole ass movie, because maybe that is a real concern. But I just think, like, grow the fuck up. If you're jealous of like an infant, grow the fuck up. So that's kind of where they're at right now. The other couples are interesting. I think Virginia and Eric are so sweet. Watching them like in their own little separate bios before they met each other, I was like, there's no way this is gonna work. She's clearly like this, you know, 26-year-old, young, fun, pretty party girl, and he's like a 34, like, whole ass adult. And I was like, no way are they gonna hit it off. Like, they're so different. But she was like so instantly attracted to him, and he was instantly attracted to her, and she was like all over him, and it was so sweet, and I liked it. I am nervous for them that their age difference is going to come out in like a parenting kind of way, or like a authority kind of way. I feel like that would be my biggest fear in dating someone where we have a significant age gap, is that I don't want to be made to feel like a little kid. And like, you know, she is younger than him. She likes partying. He's beyond that phase. But I think it's shitty to think about her spending this like young time of her life feeling like she's being treated like a kid. Because she should just be able to enjoy her time without feeling like she has like, you know, a grown-up at home tapping their foot at her. I also didn't like, I think the commercials blew it out of proportion, because I watched the episode and it didn't seem like that big of a deal. But he did mention to her something about how guys and girls can't be friends. And I think any man that says that, it's a bad sign. Because I feel like men that think they can't be friends with women are men that only view women as sexual objects. They don't view women as people that you can like have a conversation with and they have like decent and interesting opinions. I think it's a red flag when a man doesn't have female friends. And I think a man that's so scared about her having male friends, he's the one with his head in the gutter. That's what I have to say on that. I love Brianna and Vincent. I think they're so sweet. I'm so happy that they're happy. I like Clara and Ryan. I think Clara's great. She's kind of like the person that I want to be in a way. Like I like that she's like fun and she knows what to say and she's like loud, but she's everybody's friend. I feel like Ryan's a little more held back than her, and I'm nervous for them that he's gonna be kind of like annoyed by her, but we'll see how that goes. And then Haley and Jake, I can't remember if it's Jake or Jacob. Them, I don't understand. A lot of these situations I'm looking at kind of from the female perspective, because I can imagine being the woman who's being set up with one of these men. But when it came to Jake, I was like, he's like the last kind of man I'd want to be set up with. All he eats is steak and eggs. Even besides the fact that I'm vegan, it's like, that's like, one, boring, and then two, it's gross. His whole wardrobe is like silly graphic things. I hate the like R.I.P. Harambe. I feel like we're making a joke out of like a dead animal, and that's so not cool. They had clips of him repeating the same story to her parents on the wedding night and the day after. And I mean, hey, that happens, but like, I hate when people have like the shittiest memory because I have a pretty good memory. And they have a bigger age gap than Eric and Virginia do. They have a 10-year age gap, but it just seems like there's like an odd dynamic. It seemed at first like there was no chemistry. Like at the wedding, he wasn't even smiling. It was pretty awkward. But then like now they show them out to dinner and like they're kind of having like reserved silly conversations. Like they're talking about silly things, but it's kind of like not like a loud laughing conversation, but like they seem to be on the same page and they seem to have some flow. It's not like Henry and Christina in the past where they had clearly nothing to talk about. We'll see where that goes. I don't understand them. I don't understand what she's looking for, but maybe it's him. I don't have my eyelash curler, but hopefully that doesn't make a difference. I'm going to take my Ofra Pillowtalk for my inner corners. I have these mascara smudges under my eyes and I do not have the appropriate brushes on my person to dismantle them effectively. So just pretend they're not there, okay? The boiler or whatever that is just came on, so hopefully it's not making too much noise. But that's everything. That's my makeup. Happy Valentine's Day. I don't even know if I said that it's actually Valentine's Day today, and I'm probably gonna get this up on Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day. If you're anything like me, you're drinking tea in your basement in the middle of the night, so cheers, go us. I hope that I was able to effectively communicate the points that I intended to communicate. I guess I'll find out in the morning when I look at this footage. But yeah, I guess that's everything. If you have any thoughts or information that I'm missing about Britney Spears, I would love if you would let me know. As I said, I'm by no means an expert. I just wanted to kind of give my alternate interpretation of the information that was being given to us in the documentary. And then I just had a lot to say about Married at First Sight. It's an interesting show. I recommend it. If you enjoyed this kind of like pop culture makeup thoughts and you give me a thumbs up, that would be really cool. I'd really appreciate that. And if you wanted to subscribe, I'm uploading a ton of like makeup and budgeting and decluttering kind of things. Then hit subscribe. Let's be friends. Stick around. And that's gonna be everything for today. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.